Why did life feel like a constant confrontation with pain, betrayal, loneliness, and inner war? Why did your childhood feel like a battlefield instead of a sanctuary? Why were you the one who felt everything so deeply, who questioned everything so early, who carried burdens no one saw? If you've ever asked these questions, you're not broken. You're not cursed. You're not forgotten. You are a dark, chosen one. And the journey you've walked, the one filled with shadows, was not a deviation from your purpose. It was your purpose. Because God doesn't just choose the brightest to carry the light. He chooses those who've known the dark so intimately that they can walk through hell without being consumed by it. This is the path of the dark, chosen ones. We are the ones sent into the places others avoid. We are dropped into dysfunction, into trauma, into spiritual chaos, not to be destroyed, but to remember who we are. Because the greatest souls are not formed in temples, they are forged in war. Spiritual war, emotional war, internal war. And if you're watching this, I know you've been through it. Maybe you're still in it. But what you don't realize yet is that your shadow journey is not just a chapter of your life, it's a divine code, a sacred assignment, a spiritual initiation that no one else could survive the way you did.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
And here's the truth very few ever dared to say out loud. God hides his most powerful warriors in the most painful lives. He places his chosen in the places that seem furthest from him. Why? Because when you wake up in the dark, you learn to find the light that no one else can see. You learn to create it. You learn to be it. And that kind of light, it doesn't flicker. It doesn't fade. It doesn't need validation. Because it was born in the abyss. I want you to think back to your earliest memories, not the happy ones, but the hard ones, or the confusion, the fear. The moments you were abandoned, misunderstood, silenced. Those moments weren't accidents. They were activations. Each one cracked a piece of your false identity so your true essence could start to emerge. Pain is the chisel that carves the soul of a chosen one. And darkness is the classroom where we learn our deepest truths. This is not spiritual fluff. This is raw spiritual technology. The shadow is not your enemy, it's your initiation. And yet most of us were never taught how to navigate this. We were taught to fear the darkness inside. We were told to suppress it, to hide it, to fake the light. But that's not healing. That's spiritual bypass. Real healing happens when you walk into the cave of your own mind, your own trauma, your own rage, and sit there until the illusions break. Until you stop begging for rescue and realize you are the rescuer. This is the first sign that you are a dark chosen one. You've walked through years, maybe decades of internal suffering, and yet something inside you never fully died. No matter how bad it got, no matter how much you lost, no matter how many breakdowns you endured, there was always a flicker, a whisper, a stubborn ember that said, "Keep going." That ember is not just hope. It's remembrance. It's the divine part of you that knows your pain has purpose, that knows your anger is sacred, that knows your loneliness is holy. Because it's in isolation that the divine downloads begin. It's in pain that the ego dies. It's in loss that your mission is revealed. Have you ever felt like you were being watched by something higher even in your darkest moments? That's not paranoia. That's divine surveillance. You are being watched not to be judged, but to be witnessed. Every tear you cried was seen. Every night you begged for answers was heard. Every time you screamed at the sky, "Why me?" God was there. Silent, maybe, but present. Because the silence itself was part of the initiation. You were being trained to hear a deeper voice. Not the voice of the world, but the voice of your soul. And that's the second truth of the dark chosen one path. You are not here to escape the dark. You are here to master it. To walk through the shadows of your mind, your past, your lineage, and reclaim your power. Because darkness is not evil. It's unintegrated power. It's truth that hasn't been seen yet. And when you face it, when you stop running from your rage, your grief, your despair, you find the gold buried underneath. You find your voice, your gifts, your divine fire. Let me ask you a question that will change you if you really let it land. What if your shadow has been carrying the part of your soul that you've been waiting for your whole life? What if the things you've been taught to hate about yourself, your anger, your intensity, your darkness, are actually the exact tools you need to fulfill your mission? What if your rage is sacred fuel? What if your depression is a message from your soul saying, this life you're living isn't aligned? What if your sadness is proof that you still care, proof that your heart hasn't hardened, even after all this time? You see, the dark chosen ones are not here to play small spiritual games. We are here to dismantle illusions, to break generational chains, to expose the shadows not just in ourselves, but in the world. That's why your journey has been so hard, because you're not just healing your trauma. You're healing the trauma of your bloodline. You're healing the secrets that were never spoken. You're healing the shame that's been passed down for centuries. And that kind of mission, it doesn't come with ease. It comes with fire. You were sent into this world as a spiritual disruptor, a truth teller, a sacred rebel, and the world doesn't know what to do with that energy. That's why you were rejected. That's why you were misunderstood. That's why you felt like the black sheep in every room. But what if the black sheep is actually the blueprint? What if you were never meant to fit in? What if your very existence is a challenge to the systems that feed off silence and conformity? This is where power begins, not in the light, but in the dark. In the moment you stop asking for permission and start embodying your truth. In the moment you stop hiding your pain and start turning it into power. In the moment you finally say, I'm done pretending. I'm here to remember who I am, and who you are is a soul forged in shadow, chosen by God, awakened by pain, and destined to bring light to the places that have been forgotten. If you're still watching this, it's because you're ready. Ready to stop running. Ready to confront the parts of yourself that still bleed. Ready to stop asking what's wrong with you and start asking what's right about the journey that broke you open. Because everything you've been through has been leading to this moment. The moment you realize your darkness was never your downfall, it was your doorway. There is a sacred truth hidden beneath centuries of fear, misinterpretation, and spiritual suppression. A truth the world has forgotten because remembering it would empower the very souls that systems have tried to silence. That truth is this: God sends his most powerful warriors into the darkest realms first, not to punish them, not to break them, but to prepare them. The descent is not the opposite of ascension, it is the initiation into it. And those of us known as the dark chosen ones, we didn't fall. We were sent. You didn't get lost. You were led. That trauma, that betrayal, that addiction, that abuse, that identity crisis. It wasn't a detour. It was divine design. Because the only way to develop a soul strong enough to carry the frequency of truth, love, and healing in a world addicted to lies, fear, and illusion is to build it in the dark. You were chosen to descend, not to stay there, but to return with wisdom. You see, ascension isn't about escaping the world. It's about confronting it. It's about walking through the shadows of this realm with your eyes open. It's about going into the pain, the rage, the grief, and transmuting it into gold. That's alchemy. That's what the ancient mystics knew. That's why the greatest prophets, sages, and spiritual warriors went through the fire first. Because only those who've walked through hell can speak heaven into existence with any authority. Look at the pattern. Moses exiled. Jesus tempted in the wilderness. Buddha leaving the palace and sitting under the Bodhi tree in isolation. Every awakened being was first broken down before they were built up. That breakdown is not a curse. It's the divine stripping away what you were never meant to carry. The false identities, the generational lies, the emotional burdens that were forced onto you before you even had language to resist them. God doesn't choose the strongest. He makes the chosen strong through the darkness. And I know what you're thinking, but why me? Why did I have to go through that? That's one of the most sacred questions a soul can ask. And the answer isn't easy, but it's profound. You were sent into the pain because you had the spiritual coding to survive it. You were placed in dysfunction because your soul had the blueprint to reverse it. You were born in darkness because you were designed to illuminate it. The pain you've endured wasn't random, it was strategic. It aligned with your soul contract. And before you were born, you said yes. Yes to the descent. Yes to the forgetting. Yes to walking through realms of shadow, so when the time came, you could lead others out. And here's what most people don't understand. The longer and deeper your descent, the greater your light. That's spiritual law. The deeper the roots, the higher the rise. You weren't just surviving your trauma, you were collecting data. You were observing, learning, feeling, and understanding. You were being trained in empathy, in discernment, in resilience, in energetic integrity. You now know what real love feels like because you've experienced betrayal. You know what peace is because you've lived in chaos. You know how to spot deception because you've been lied to. That's not trauma, it's spiritual intelligence. And it only comes through lived experience. But here's where the shift happens. The descent ends when you stop identifying with your pain. When you stop saying, "This happened to me," and start realizing, "This happened for me, so I could become who I was born to be." That shift in perception is the birth of your spiritual authority. It's the moment you stop being a victim of your story and become the author of it. You start reclaiming your voice, your power, your truth. You start walking differently, speaking differently, seeing differently. Because now you understand the assignment. Let me ask you something that will stir your entire being. What if your scars aren't signs of what hurt you, but seals of what qualified you? What if your deepest shame is actually the door to your highest power? What if the thing you've spent your whole life hiding is the exact frequency someone else is praying to hear? The moment you realize that your shadow is not your enemy but your initiation, you stop hiding from it and you start working with it. You start seeing it for what it really is, sacred power unclaimed. You see, your shadow isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to free you. It's the part of you that holds all the emotions, truths, and gifts that were rejected by the world, so you buried them. Your rage isn't a sin, it's a signal. Your sadness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Your intensity isn't too much, it's medicine. And when you stop running from those parts of yourself, when you actually turn toward your shadow and say, I see you, I'm ready to listen, something extraordinary happens. You begin to reintegrate. You become whole. That's the third revelation of the dark chosen one. Wholeness comes from integration, not perfection. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remember who you were before the world told you to be someone else. You need to reclaim the child, the rebel, the seer, the mystic, the warrior, the lover inside of you, and bring them all back to the table. That's when power returns. That's when your frequency rises. That's when the people, opportunities, and divine assignments start aligning. Because the universe doesn't respond to the version of you that's performing. It responds to the version of you that's real. And when you get real, when you become the integration of light and shadow, truth and trauma, spirit and flesh, you become unstoppable. You become a force that systems can't box in. You become a voice that lies can't silence. You become the living contradiction to everything that told you you'll never make it out. And that's exactly what this world needs. Not more perfect people pretending to be enlightened, but real ones, raw ones, chosen ones who've walked through the fire and are willing to speak from the ashes. This is your moment, not to escape the dark, but to reclaim your crown in it. You didn't just survive the descent, you earned your anointing in it. Now it's time to wear it. Now it's time to walk into rooms with your head held high, not because you have no wounds, but because you've made peace with them. Now it's time to speak, create, lead, and move from a place of embodiment. Not because you're fully healed, but because you're awake. Awake to your power, to your path, to your divine plan. And so I ask you again, what if your descent wasn't you falling from grace, but falling into it? What if the darkness wasn't your enemy, but your teacher? What if the most powerful version of you is the one who walks through both realms, light and shadow, and knows how to weave them into wisdom? Because that, my friend, is what makes you dangerous to darkness. Not that you know the light, but that you remember the dark and still chose grace, still chose love, still chose God. And now, you're ready to lead others to that same remembrance. In the final part of this journey, We're going to unlock what happens when you fully accept your role as a dark chosen one. You'll learn how to wield your shadow as a sacred tool, how to protect your energy and influence without losing your authenticity, and how to walk in the world with divine power that can't be shaken. We're going deep into the sacred mechanics of embodied mastery, and the moment your pain becomes your platform for purpose. You've walked through the fire. You've made peace with your shadow. Now comes the moment that changes everything, the moment you stop running from your darkness and start wearing it like a crown. Because here's the truth no one told you: your shadow isn't your flaw, it's your frequency. It's the part of you God hid in plain sight, waiting for you to reclaim it. And when you do, when you stop apologizing for the parts of yourself that once scared you, you step into a power that cannot be faked, copied, or controlled. You become whole. And wholeness is the real holiness. This is the shadow crown. Not a title given by man, but a recognition given by God. It's the moment you realize your scars are sacred. Your rage is righteous. Your grief is a gateway. Your mistakes were not disqualifiers, they were teachers. And when you allow those lessons to crystallize into wisdom, you begin to move with divine clarity. You stop second-guessing your intuition. You stop shrinking in rooms that can't contain your truth. You stop leaking energy trying to prove your worth, because now you know who you are. You are a dark chosen one, not because you were pure, but because you were purified. Not because you were flawless, but because you were forged. You've seen the underworld of your own psyche and returned with keys. And now, your mission is to walk as a living bridge between realms, between light and shadow, spirit and flesh, heaven and earth. You are here to remind others that they are not lost, they are becoming. But here's the most divine secret of all. Your shadow wasn't just part of your journey, it was the map. Every trigger, every wound, every breakdown was pointing you toward your soul's design. And now, instead of fearing the dark, you lead from it, with compassion, with fire, with unshakable presence. Because real power doesn't come from what you've avoided, it comes from what you've overcome. So I ask you one final time, not with pressure, but with purpose. Now that you've remembered who you really are, what will you do with that truth? Will you stay hidden? Or will you rise as the shadow walker you were born to be? Because the world needs your voice, your story, your sacred rage, and your holy love. The world needs warriors who've made peace with their darkness and can now lead others to the light. This isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your embodiment. The crown is yours. Now rise.